Welcome to the Heartification podcast, where I interview people on how art has affected their lives and what it means to them. Art has a very special place in my life. It not only makes me feel happy, but it allows me to make others feel special. This podcast is all about how art has made an impact on others' lives, for all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of life. You can find more about this podcast guest in my show notes. Without further ado, let's welcome my next guest. She is a business coach that helps leaders and entrepreneurs get out of their own way so they can lead and create at higher levels. Please welcome my next guest, Shawn Phelps.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on my podcast. So the first question I always ask is, how do you define art?
That's a good question. How do I define art? I mean, art, I think, is something that is personal to each person. So I love that you ask each person that. I mean, it's something that comes from inside of us. It's like a form of expression, right? Just like what we wear or how we design our house. So it's like definitely, for me, I don't know if I could give it a definition, but for me, it's something that is unique to each person and gets expressed through each person differently.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. Like, my definition is any way you're able to express yourself and let out your emotions, just as you said.
Amazing.
And what art forms are you exposed to?
I'm definitely not exposed to a lot of traditional art forms. I have clients who are amazing artists, but I myself, when I was younger, I was into painting and poetry, and I did all those things. I was very into creating. I never really studied it professionally or anything like that. So for me, the art forms that I'm surrounded by are much more about people, much more about like people going from here to there, sort of recreating themselves in some way. And I don't know if people think of that as art, but for me, that is like art.
Yeah, that's awesome. And can you explain the term of people getting in their own way?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny because it's something a lot of people say, but they don't always know what they mean when they're saying it, right? There's like, I'm always in my own way. But it's a very particular thing. So what's happening is parts of us are sort of getting in the way of something that another part of us wants. So one part is blocking another part, right? So you'll have one part that wants to, I don't know, get really fit and healthy, and you'll have one part that wants to eat ice cream, So like, that's a very small example. There are much more complex examples, right? But it's something like that. So for me, what it means when you're getting in your own way is that some part of your psyche self from your childhood experiences or whatever, it's got an idea that's holding you back from something else that you want to do or create.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I think sometimes we can get in our own way. And like you said, half of us wants to do this, half of us wants to do that. And I love how you're helping people get out of their own way.
Thank you. I love how quickly you're able to sort of grasp and sort of reframe an idea.
Thank you. And was searching for creativity in your life the reason why you quit your job as an editor?
Was searching for creativity. I don't know if consciously that's what I was thinking, but definitely it was more like, and this actually is interesting because it kind of goes to what is creativity. Because what creativity and art are kind of different, right? So like for me, what is creativity? Creativity is actually a state of being. It's not like a thing, it's like a state. So for me, creativity is when you're really deeply connected with yourself and you're just sort of exploring, right? You're just sort of going. So why did I leave my job as a senior editor at what was then a National Post, is now Financial Post? Was that something in my heart, something in my soul was sort of calling me to do something new. And I didn't know what that was. So you could say that was a creative endeavor because I had no idea where it was going to go, which is kind of how creative endeavors work. Like when I was writing magazine articles and I would start like a 5,000 word article that was a profile of a celebrity or something, I wouldn't know where that was going. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't know if it was going to work. And yet I had this deadline where it was expected to work. And so like, I would just have to go on that adventure. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it was sort of the same idea when I left that job. I knew, kind of like the magazine article, that somehow it was going to work out, and I was just going to go. Because, you know, when I left that job, I went to Asia for 7 months. I don't know if you knew that, but I went from there. I quit my job, and then I went to Asia for 7 months, Southeast Asia, and traveled alone from Thailand to Nepal overland. So it was quite an adventure. And my idea was to write a book while I was there, which I did. So there was a whole bunch of pieces in there, but it was the idea, did I leave for creativity? Not exactly, but it was to align myself more with that creative part of myself, to trust that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you use creativity when helping people get out of their own way?
Yeah, that goes back to that idea of what is creativity. So creativity is, for me, a deep connection with a deeper part of ourselves, right? It's a deep connection with a deeper part of ourselves. And so when we're in that place, we can we get a feeling that people talk about as like flow state, right? Where things are just working and I'm sure you've experienced this too with art or whatever, you're just creating. And it's just like, you're not really thinking, right? You're just sort of creating. So like when I'm helping people get out of their own way, I'm actually in that kind of a state. I purposely put myself into that kind of a state through like just getting nothing weird, just getting connected to myself. And when I'm really deeply connected with myself, I don't have any thoughts or opinions or ideas. So it's just like this pure state where I can sort of flow with whatever that person is showing me. And then I can sort of see how to maneuver them. It's kind of hard to explain, but it is a creative state. It's just that it's not something that I'm using my ideas for or my opinions. Actually, all my ideas and opinions are put aside. It is literally I'm just flowing with something higher and deeper, for lack of a better way to explain it.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And when you were studying past great leaders such as Nelson Mandela, and Gandhi, was there an element of creativity onto how they became leaders?
Yeah. I mean, if I look at, I love them all. I definitely have studied them all, but Nelson Mandela is my favorite, and on so many levels. And so I would say that he also was someone who aligned with that creative part that I was talking about, that part that's sort of so deep that we almost can't describe it in this world. You know, it's like this place inside of us that's untouchable, that is like really deeply connected to some kind of guidance inside ourselves. And he was that. I mean, he spent 27 years in prison. And during that time, he went through his own journey of becoming more deeply connected to that place, which I would say is the place of true creativity, right? The place where you're flowing with something higher that's creating something bigger. So for him, it was this vision of a country where everybody was equal. It was this vision of a country that had no apartheid, but it was much bigger than that. It was a vision where everybody was equal and supporting each other, and there was peace and all these things and justice. And so like, in a way, it was like when he tapped into that creative part of himself, right? That flow state part, he was able to create that in ways that his mind would never be able to figure out, right? Like there's no way he could, while he was in prison, think to himself, I'm going to become like head of the country and like change everything. You know what I mean? But somehow, by being deeply connected to himself, that creativity flowed through him. And it sort of created, I almost see creativity as a force that uses us like an instrument, you know, if that makes sense. So we are the instrument, and we want to be a very clean instrument, right? For me, if I'm working with a client, I need to be a very clean instrument. I think for Nelson Mandela, he was a very clean instrument. He had very high values, and he really genuinely wanted that vision. So like, if you're a clean instrument, that creativity can flow through you into the world in beautiful ways. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And art can be therapeutic and can help people through difficult situations. So has art ever helped you through a difficult situation?
Wow, for sure. For sure. And on this case, it is more personal with art itself, like with writing or drawing or painting. Like for me, writing is kind of an art form too, but I have also done painting and drawing and stuff like that when I'm finding myself in some kind of emotional place that I don't know how to move through. So I really do, like, one of the things I like to do is like free drawing or free writing. And they're both kind of very flowy, creative things where I'll just be like, with free writing, I'm just going to start writing whatever's flowing through me. With free drawing, I'm going to do the same thing with no plan, right? And it's just a way to get those emotions out, onto a page. So definitely I have used like actual art practices myself to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I call art like a little friend. It's like someone you can go to when you're feeling down and you can just pour your heart into it, if it's drawing or writing or dancing. And you don't have to show it to the world. It can just be for yourself. But I like to call art your little friend because,
Gosh,
a friend you
wonderful.
can go to and just talk to. So art's kind of like that.
Totally. And that's such a beautiful frame. I've never heard anyone say it like that. Avni, that's really beautiful. And I'm going to think about that. I'm going to think about it myself that way from now on, because definitely it is a friend I've turned to. I just never thought of it that way. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And are you attracted to any particular artist?
Again, going back to this idea that how I see artists are a little bit different. So like, I have artist friends who if I were to say I have a favorite artist, it's probably one of my clients. And she's truly inspiring and makes stuff that's sort of transformative and shows people all these layers. But for me, it's really not a one person. Though certainly if I were to pick like from the traditional artists, I really like the, I guess like the impressionists or the people who use a lot of texture in their painting, because I like all the different textures going together, like Van Gogh or like Monet or something like that. But in modern day world, I'm probably more like Banksy or like, I really like artists that are making a statement. I like artists that stand for something, that are using art. And that's why it doesn't have to be like actual painting. It could be anything. It could be themselves, right? It could be someone, like sometimes art, I read about this one installation where a woman sat in a room and she just like met people with love, and they would come into the room and they would sit in front of her and she would just sort of give them love through her eyes, not touch them or anything. She would just like, and it was an art installation. And I thought, wow, that's really amazing. And there's this other guy, now doesn't consider himself an artist, but he's from Iran, and he left Iran when he was very young, and he's been running around the world. I don't know if you read about this guy, but he's been running around the world ever since, like his entire life, for like decades. He's just been running around the world for peace and love. And all he does, like if he gets any money, he just gives it away, like all he does. And so for me, that's a form of art. That's like taking your life and turning it into kind of an art form, right? Which I think is really beautiful. So that's my kind of artist. I don't have one artist, but I love any artist who is creating something that is like for a higher cause.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And are you attracted to any particular art form?
Well, I have to say, this is going to surprise you, but I would have to say Latin dancing, which is weirdly, it is a kind of art form, right? Dance. And I came to dance very late in my life. I never danced my whole life until my late 40s. And in my, like when I was 46, I guess, I suddenly decided I'm going to learn how to dance. It was that creative feeling, it just came to me, because all my life I'd just been so bad. Like people had actually made fun of me. And so I started taking dance lessons, and it completely changed my life. I fell in love with dancing, and I fell in love with the art form. And for me, I'm not like the best dancer in the world, but I'm a good dancer compared to what I was. But for me, also now when I see dancers and I see their form, and I know how hard it is because I've been trying to do it, I have a really incredible esteem for dance as a form of art. What are they doing? They're using their bodies to express emotion or an experience or whatever it is, pain and anger. And I just think it's really beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. And I love the dances that tell a story where they're dancing, but the different moves they're making and their facial expressions, you can kind of tell what they're feeling. And the whole dance, it tells a story.
Yeah, me too.
I love that. Those. Yeah, and it's amazing how by just a few movements of your body, a few gestures of your face, you can make a whole audience feel what you're feeling.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that one of the beautiful things about art and and dance as an art form too, is like that you can take these things that are the human experience and you can tap into it in a way that makes people feel less alone.
Yeah, definitely. It's really amazing. And my Heartification project is all about giving back to the community. So how do you give back to the community?
Yes, good question. Well, I would say right now I'm on a kind of hiatus, but I did spend quite a number of years very deep into that. So for 5 years, I ran a children's charity where I built schools and toilets in Laos and a couple projects in India, but it was mostly in Laos. And in the southern area in the islands where there's like no electricity, no running water, stuff like this. So that was, and I didn't take any money from that. It was all like I paid all my own overhead. It was like a full on life, everything project. After that, I sort of burned out a bit. And then I also did another year though, immediately after I closed down the charity, where I called it the year of giving myself away. And I spent 1/3 of my time volunteering, 1/3 of my time doing personal development, like meditation, stuff like that. And 1/3 of my time just working enough to pay my rent. And it was a really powerful year. I volunteered in multiple seniors' homes for I cooked for them. I was doing part of a Pay What You Can cafe. I was helping community food organizations and growing food and planting food in gardens for youth that were like in like youth transition centers and stuff like that. So it was a really intense year. So I did that. Since then, I've pulled back from that intense hands-on level because what I'm focusing on now more is my clients who are helping others. So my clients are generally leaders who are helping the community in some powerful way, or they're doing something, they're building something that helps others. So I've sort of been pulling back to use my energy more for that. But that's not to say it's not still a passion and something that I want to move back into as I get my energy back for that. It's more just like I've found that I only have so much physical energy. so I have to focus it somewhere. But certainly, like I've helped a lot of people with advice on like helping them start up their own charities, or just I'm very free and open with helping people with anything I've done. And so I've helped a lot of people that way. And then, of course, social media, I help people in whatever way I can. But that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, it's also like the little things like just volunteering somewhere can make an impact. Just volunteering for a few hours can
totally. I mean, the other thing is I'm taking care of my senior parents right now. So I actually, during COVID, I actually moved from my apartment in Toronto. I gave it up and moved in with my parents to take care of them. So that's been a really big part of my time for the last while, is like juggling that. So like I help them with all their cooking and all their meals, and they have some sort of health problems and some aging problems with memory and stuff, like more serious. So I'm having to manage that a lot with lists and all those things. So that's been taking up a lot of my time, maybe an energy that I might use for something else, but definitely no question in the future. It's something that I'll go back to just because I love it. Like I really enjoy working in, especially community food programs and stuff like that are a lot of fun for me. I love the camaraderie, and I've been part of lots of young entrepreneur groups and stuff like that too. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how would you like people to get in touch with you?
Probably the best way is just my website, which is ShawnPhelps.com, which is ShawnPhelps. That's probably the best because I'm contacting on there. I'm also on Instagram, Shawn D. Phelps.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
It was such a gift to have me, such a gift to meet you, and all the best with your projects and your show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Remember, if you want to find out more about this guest, please go to my show notes where I have all the links needed. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my podcast series and help me by sharing it, leaving a rating, and a comment. I hope you join me on my next podcast. Bye for now.